My parents are forcing me to give my inheritance to my step-siblings or be disowned. I'm 24 years old, and I just received a life-changing inheritance from my late grandmother. It's enough money to pay off my student loans, buy a house, and have a solid financial foundation for my future. I've been crying tears of joy and relief because this money means security I never thought I'd have. But my parents are demanding I split it equally with my 3 step-siblings, who I barely know, who have wealthy parents of their own, and who my grandmother explicitly did not include in her will. When I refused, my parents told me I have 1 week to do the right thing, or I'm no longer their daughter. I'm being disowned over money that was never theirs to begin with. And somehow I'm the bad guy. The background: my mom and dad divorced when I was 11. It was messy and painful, but they eventually settled into a functional co-parenting relationship. I split my time between their houses fairly evenly, and while it wasn't perfect, it worked. When I was 15, my dad remarried. His new wife, Stephanie, had 3 kids from her previous marriage, twins Kyle and Kara, who were 14 at the time, and younger son Brandon, who was 10. We became a blended family, though I never really felt like part of it. Stephanie's kids were fine, I guess. We weren't close. They had their dynamic, and I was the outsider who showed up every other week. Kyle and Kara mostly ignored me. Brandon tried to be friendly, but I was a moody teenager who resented the whole situation. I didn't hate them. I just never bonded with them. They weren't my siblings. They were my dad's wife's kids who happened to live in the same house as me part-time. My dad tried to force "they were a family now" narrative, but it never stuck. Stephanie tried too, always planning family activities that felt performative and awkward. I'd grit my teeth through them and count down the days until I could go back to my mom's. My mom never remarried, so her house remained my primary emotional home. That's where my room really was. That's where I felt like myself. When I went to college at 18, I drifted even further from my dad's household. I'd visit on holidays, be polite, and leave. The step-siblings and I barely spoke. We were friendly strangers, nothing more. My grandmother, my mom's mother, was the most important person in my life besides my mom. Grandma Jean was my champion, my confidant, my safe place. When things were hard with the divorce or the blended family situation, I'd go to her house and she'd listen and make everything better. Grandma Jean's priorities. Grandma Jean was old school in some ways, but fiercely loving. She worked as a teacher for 40 years, saved carefully, and invested wisely. By the time she retired, she'd built up a substantial nest egg. Not rich by billionaire standards, but comfortable. She had strong opinions about family and money. She believed in taking care of your own, but also in earning what you got. She helped my mom financially after the divorce, helped pay for some of my college expenses, and was always there with support when we needed it. But she also had clear boundaries about who was hers to take care of. When my dad remarried, I remember her saying, "Your father's new wife and her children have their own family. I'm glad your father is happy, but they're not my responsibility." It wasn't mean-spirited. It was just factual. Stephanie's kids had their own grandparents, their own family structure. Grandma Jean's loyalty and resources were for my mom and me. She never met my step-siblings. Never asked about them. When I'd mention something about Kyle or Kara, she'd listen politely but clearly wasn't interested. They weren't her grandchildren, and she didn't pretend otherwise. Looking back, I appreciate her honesty. She wasn't going to fake a relationship that didn't exist. Grandma Jean's death. Grandma Jean died 8 weeks ago. She was 79 and it was sudden, a stroke that came out of nowhere. One day she was fine, the next day she was gone. I was devastated. This was the woman who raised me as much as my mom did. Who believed in me. Who loved me unconditionally. At the funeral, my dad and Stephanie came, which I appreciated. My step-siblings didn't, which was fine. They'd never met her. Why would they come? During the reception at my mom's house, Stephanie made a comment that stuck with me. She said to my dad, "I hope Jean left something for the kids. It would be nice if they could benefit from her estate too." I was too deep in grief to process it at the time, but my mom heard it. She told me later that she'd responded coolly, Jean left her estate to her daughter and granddaughter. That's how these things work. Stephanie had apparently looked offended but dropped it. The reading of the will. Last week, Grandma Jean's lawyer called me and my mom in for the reading of the will. It was straightforward. The house, worth about $400,000, was left to my mom. A $50,000 donation to her favorite charity. Everything else, about $320,000 in savings, investments, and life insurance, was left to me. $320,000. I couldn't breathe when I heard the number. That's more money than I'd ever imagined having. That's life-changing money. The lawyer walked me through everything. The money would transfer to me directly. No restrictions, no conditions. It was mine to do with as I chose. Your grandmother was very clear, the lawyer said. She wanted you to have financial security and opportunities she didn't have as a young woman. She was very proud of you. I cried right there in the lawyer's office. Grandma Jean had given me a future. My mom was crying too. She loved you so much, honey. She wanted you to be taken care of. We went home and celebrated quietly, toasting Grandma Jean with her favorite wine and looking through photo albums. It was bittersweet, joy at her gift, grief at her absence. I didn't tell my dad right away. I was still processing it. But my mom must have mentioned it to someone because 3 days later, my dad called. Hey, sweetie, I heard about your grandmother's will. That's wonderful. I'm so happy for you. Thanks, Dad. It's still surreal. I bet. That's a lot of money for a 24-year-old. Something in his tone put me on edge. Yeah, it is. Have you thought about what you'll do with it? Pay off my student loans first. Maybe buy a small house. Invest the rest. That's smart. Very mature. A pause. Have you thought about sharing it with Kyle, Kara, and Brandon? I actually laughed, thinking he was joking. What? Why would I do that? Well, they're your siblings. It would be the right thing to do, don't you think? To share this windfall with the family? Dad, they're not my siblings. They're your stepkids. And Grandma Jean didn't even know them. They're part of our family now. Have been for almost 10 years. I think your grandmother would have wanted you to share with them. Dad, Grandma Jean explicitly left the money to me. Not to them. Just me. Because she didn't know them. If she'd met them, I'm sure she would have included them. But she didn't. And she wouldn't have. She was very clear about family boundaries. I'm disappointed in your attitude, honestly. I thought we raised you better than this. Family shares with family. They have their own family. Stephanie's parents are alive and, from what I understand, pretty well off. My step-siblings aren't struggling. That's not the point. The point is doing what's right. You have more than enough. Sharing wouldn't hurt you. Dad, this conversation is making me really uncomfortable. Grandma left this money to me. It's mine. I'm not splitting it with people I barely know. You barely know them because you've never tried to have a real relationship with them. Maybe if you'd been more welcoming over the years. I was a kid when you remarried. I didn't ask for a blended family. And I didn't ask for you to be so cold to your step-siblings for the past decade. But here we are. I was furious. I need to go. Just think about what I said. Do the right thing, honey. Share with your family. He hung up. I sat there shaking with anger and confusion. What just happened? The family meeting. 2 days later, my dad texted asking me to come to a family meeting at his house. I almost said no, but curiosity got the better of me. I showed up to find my dad, Stephanie, Kyle, Kara, and Brandon all sitting in the living room waiting for me. It felt like an ambush. Thanks for coming, my dad started. We wanted to talk to you about your inheritance. There's nothing to talk about. It's my inheritance. Stephanie jumped in. We understand this is an emotional time, but we think there's been a misunderstanding about family obligations. What misunderstanding? Your father and I have been married for 9 years. Our children, including you, are all part of one family unit. When one child receives a significant financial benefit, it affects the whole family dynamic. How does my inheritance affect anyone else? It creates inequality, Kyle said. I was surprised to hear him speak. You get $320,000 and we get nothing. That's not fair. Life's not fair, I said. Your grandparents are alive. Maybe they'll leave you something. That's not the same, Kara added. We're all siblings. We should be treated equally. We're not siblings. We're step-siblings who barely know each other. That's hurtful, Brandon said quietly. He looked genuinely upset, which made me feel guilty for about 2 seconds. My dad took over. Here's what we're proposing. You got $320,000. There are 4 of you kids. That's $80,000 each if you split it equally. You'd still have enough to pay off your loans and have money left over. I stared at him. You want me to give $240,000 to your stepkids? I want you to share with your siblings, he corrected.
No.
Absolutely not. Stephanie's expression hardened. We're not asking. We're telling you this is what needs to happen to maintain family unity. Family unity? You want me to give away 3/4 of my inheritance for family unity with people I see twice a year? If you saw us more often, maybe you'd feel differently, Kara snapped. I'm an adult with my own life. I don't owe you people anything. You people? My dad stood up. These are your siblings, and you're talking about them like they're strangers. Because they basically are strangers. That's your fault, Stephanie said coldly. You've never accepted this family. You've always kept one foot out the door. Maybe if you'd tried harder to bond with the kids. I was 15 when you married my dad. I was a child dealing with my parents' divorce. I didn't know your kids anything then, and I don't owe them anything now. The room erupted. Everyone talking over each other. Cal calling me selfish. Kara saying I was proving I never cared about them. Brandon looking like he might cry. My dad finally shouted over everyone. Enough. Emma, you have 1 week to make a decision. Either you split the inheritance fairly with your siblings, or you're no longer part of this family. The room went silent. What? I whispered. You heard me. You have a choice. Share with the family, or you're out. You're disowning me? Over money? I'm drawing a line. I will not have one of my children be this selfish and cruel. Either you do the right thing, or you are no longer my daughter. I looked at Stephanie, who nodded in agreement. I looked at the 3 step-siblings, who all looked self-righteous and entitled. Wow, I said. Okay, good to know where I stand. I walked out, got in my car, drove away, and I haven't spoken to any of them since. The aftermath. That was 5 days ago. Since then, my dad has texted twice reiterating the ultimatum. Stephanie has called and left a voicemail teaching me about family values. Cal texted saying, just give us the money, and this can all go away. My dad's sister, my aunt, called to tell me I'm being incredibly selfish. Multiple family friends from my dad's side have reached out to say I'm breaking the family apart. Not one of them has acknowledged that what they're asking is insane. My mom is furious on my behalf. Your grandmother left that money to you.
Not them.
They have no claim to it, moral or legal. My mom's family is all on my side. My uncle called my dad and apparently tore into him. My grandfather, mom's dad, sent me a long letter about standing up for myself and not letting anyone guilt me into giving away my security. My friends are unanimously on my team. My boyfriend thinks my dad and Stephanie have lost their minds. My therapist says this is financial abuse and emotional blackmail. But I still feel guilty. Not about keeping the money, I know that's mine, but about the family fracture, about Brandon looking hurt, about my dad saying I'm not his daughter anymore. Even though intellectually I know I'm right, there's this voice in my head saying, what if they're right? What if you are selfish? What if a good person would share? Yesterday, things escalated. My dad's best friend, a man I've known my whole life, who I call Uncle Ron, showed up at my apartment. Your dad asked me to talk to you, he started. There's nothing to talk about. Emma, I've known you since you were a baby. I've watched you grow up. And I have to say, I'm disappointed in you. That stung. Uncle Ron was always one of the good ones.
Why?
Because you're letting money come between you and your family. Your dad and Stephanie are just trying to create equality among all the kids. Is that really so terrible? They want me to give away $240,000 to people who aren't even related to me. They're your father's family. Doesn't that count for something? My grandmother left that money to me, not to them. She had her reasons. Your grandmother didn't know them. If she had, I'm sure.
No, she wouldn't have.
She was very clear about boundaries. Stephanie's kids have their own family. Everyone keeps saying that, but the reality is you've all been living as one family for almost a decade. At some point, you have to accept that they're your siblings. I don't have to accept anything, and I'm not giving them my inheritance. Uncle Ron sighed. Your dad is serious about the ultimatum. If you don't do this, you'll lose him. Then, I guess I lose him. You don't mean that. I do. If my relationship with my dad is contingent on me giving away $240,000 to his stepchildren, then it's not a relationship worth having. Uncle Ron left looking disappointed. I cried for an hour after he was gone. The legal angle. I was worried that somehow they could force me to split the money, so I consulted with an estate lawyer. The answer was clear. They have no legal claim whatsoever. The money is mine. Grandma Jean's will was crystal clear. Even if my dad tried to sue, which the lawyer said was unlikely since he'd have no standing, he'd lose. Your inheritance is protected, the lawyer assured me. No one can compel you to share it. That was a relief. But it doesn't solve the emotional manipulation or the family fracture. What the step-siblings actually have. Here's the thing that makes this even more absurd. Kyle, Kara, and Brandon aren't struggling financially. Stephanie's ex-husband, their father, is a successful orthodontist. He pays child support, covers their health insurance, and has already set up college funds for all 3 kids. They all graduated college debt-free. Stephanie herself makes good money as a pharmaceutical sales rep. Combined with my dad's income, he's a project manager. They're solidly upper middle class. Kyle is 23 and works in tech, making $75,000 a year. Kara is 23 and in grad school, fully funded. Brandon is 19 and in college, with his tuition covered. None of them need this money. They just want it because I have it. Meanwhile, I graduated with $60,000 in student loans. I work as a social worker, making $45,000 a year. I've been living paycheck to paycheck, slowly chipping away at debt, unable to save for a house or retirement. This inheritance is the first financial breathing room I've ever had. And they want me to give most of it away to people who are already fine. The emotional manipulation. The texts and calls continue. Yesterday, I got this message from Kara. I just want you to know that Brandon has been crying every night since the family meeting. He looked up to you, and finding out you don't consider him family has really hurt him. Is money really more important than your little brother's feelings? This made me furious. First, Brandon is not my little brother. Second, I never said he wasn't family. I said I wasn't giving him my inheritance. Third, if he's crying, it's because they've manipulated him into thinking he's entitled to my money. I didn't respond. My therapist says that's the right move. Don't engage with the manipulation. They're trying to find your weak point, but it's hard.
I don't want to hurt Brandon.
I don't want to be the villain in this story. My mom's take. I've been staying with my mom a lot lately just for emotional support. Last night, we had a long conversation about all of this. Your grandmother would be so angry if she knew what they were asking you to do, Mom said. She left that money to you specifically because she wanted you to have security, not them. But what if I'm being selfish? What if a better person would share? A better person? Emma, you're a social worker making poverty wages because you wanted to help people. You volunteer at a food bank on weekends. You've sent half your paychecks to me when I was struggling. You are not selfish. Then why do I feel so guilty? Because your father is very good at emotional manipulation when he wants to be. And Stephanie has trained him to prioritize her kids over you. That hit hard. You think that's what's happening? I know it is. I've watched it happen over the past 9 years. Every time there's a conflict between you and Stephanie's kids, your dad sides with them. Every time you need something versus what they need, they come first. You've been demoted to second-tier child, and now they're demanding you prove your loyalty by giving away your security. That's a depressing way to look at it. It's an accurate way to look at it. And I'm sorry you're going through this. But you cannot give them that money. Your grandmother wanted you to have a future. Honor that.
The deadline.
Tomorrow is the deadline my dad set. I haven't contacted him. I haven't changed my mind. I'm not giving them the money. Which means tomorrow, I officially stop being my dad's daughter. I've been grieving that reality for the past week. My dad and I weren't super close, but he was still my dad. We had good memories. He taught me to ride a bike. He came to my college graduation. He walked me through my first heartbreak. And now it's over, because I won't fund his stepchildren's lives. Part of me keeps waiting for him to text and say, "I'm sorry, I was wrong. This was crazy. Please forgive me." But I know he won't. He's committed to this path. Stephanie has convinced him that I'm the villain, and he's bought it completely. I'm going to lose my father over money that was never his to begin with. I've been thinking a lot about what this situation says about blended families and obligations. Do I owe my stepsiblings anything? We lived in the same house part-time for a few years. We were polite to each other, but we never bonded. We were never close. Does that make me a bad person? Should I have tried harder to build relationships with them? Or is it okay that we remained friendly strangers? Is it okay that I don't feel connected to them? And even if I should have tried harder to bond with them, does that mean I owe them $80,000 each? Does poor relationship building as a teenager mean I should forfeit my inheritance? I don't think so. But clearly my dad and Stephanie do. What happens next? Tomorrow, the deadline passes. I'm not giving them the money. I've already transferred the inheritance into accounts they can't touch. I've paid off my student loans. I've got a down payment for a small house saved. The rest is invested for my future. I'm doing exactly what Grandma Jean wanted me to do. But I'm also losing my father, and possibly everyone on his side of the family. My aunt, Dad's sister, already told me not to come to family events anymore. If you're not part of the family, you don't get to come to family functions. So I'm out. Completely cut off from that entire side of my life. It hurts more than I expected. Even though I wasn't close to most of them, they were still my family, my history, my childhood. And now they're gone. My questions for Reddit. I need outside perspective because I'm drowning in conflicting emotions. Am I wrong? Should I share the inheritance with my stepsiblings? Is that what a good person would do? Or am I right to keep what my grandmother left specifically for me? Should I have tried harder to bond with my stepsiblings over the years? Would things be different if I had? Is my dad's ultimatum justified? Is cutting me off a reasonable response to me keeping my inheritance? And how do I live with this? How do I accept that keeping my financial security means losing my father? I know legally the money is mine, but morally, I don't know anymore. Everyone has such strong opinions, and I'm stuck in the middle feeling like either choice makes me a terrible person. So tell me, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to split my inheritance with my stepsiblings? Or are they the assholes for demanding it in the first place? Because I honestly don't know anymore. Edit. The deadline has passed. I haven't contacted my dad. He texted an hour ago. I'm disappointed in your choice. You are no longer my daughter. Don't contact me again. So that's that. I'm officially disowned. Weirdly, I feel more relieved than sad. Is that wrong? Edit 2. People are asking why Stephanie and my dad don't just give Kyle, Kara, and Brandon money if they care so much about equality. Good question. When I asked that early on, my dad said, "We don't have that kind of money lying around." But they just bought a new car and are planning European vacation. So clearly they have some money. They just don't want to spend their money on this. Edit 3. For those suggesting my stepsiblings put them up to this, I actually don't think so. Kyle and Kara seemed genuinely surprised at the family meeting when Dad brought up specific dollar amounts. I think this is primarily Stephanie's agenda, with my dad going along with it. The stepsiblings are just benefiting from her manipulation. Edit 4. Someone asked what Grandma Jean would say if she were alive. She'd probably say something like, "Tell your father and his new wife to go pound sand. That money is yours, and don't you dare give it to people who never earned it." Then she'd make me tea, and we'd laugh about the audacity of it all. I miss her so much. Edit 5. Thank you all for the overwhelming support. Reading these comments has helped me realize I'm not crazy or selfish. I'm just someone who got put in an impossible situation by unreasonable people. I'm keeping the money, honoring my grandmother's wishes, and building the secure future she wanted for me. If that costs me my relationship with my dad, then that relationship wasn't worth having anyway. Grandma Jean, this is for you. Thank you for believing in me, even when my own father didn't.